Hi, this is Jennetta Billhimer, and I am so pleased to be here with Mindi Eldredge. And she is here to speak to us about um, some really amazing topics. She has the website The Mindful Heart, and if you haven't checked into that yet, I really suggest that you do that. It has some really amazing resources. And Mindi is a homeschool mom of three. She's deep in the trenches like you are. She's been homeschooling for like 7+ years. And she's actually the former math director for The Good and the Beautiful. She helped to put the first curriculum together and all for them. And now she is doing the Mindful Heart, and you should just check it out. Some really amazing resources there. And I really wanted to talk to her, and I have some questions for her today. Um, and I think that this is going to help everyone. She's going to talk today on an educational roadmap made just for your family. And wouldn't that just be amazing to have a roadmap that was made for your family, that you didn't have to worry so much about that there is actually a road, and that there's help out there for you. So with no further ado, welcome, Mindi, so much,
Thank
and
you.
thank you so much just for being here.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Um, so I know that you talk about the whole child and educating the whole child, and I think a lot of times that gets lost in the public school system, or just even maybe even in private schools and all too. You taught in the public schools for a while, and I know. I have a degree in elementary education also, and have been, of course, I was raised in the public school system. You probably were too. And I think, we feel like that there are just maybe some better ways. Can you talk about that a bit?
Sure. Um, so actually, prior to teaching, when I was actually, going to school and in the elementary education program, one thing that I started studying was, and you may be familiar with Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. And for those who haven't heard of it, it was back in, I believe, was it the 70s, 60s, 70s, probably 70s, if I remember correctly, that so educators and psychologists, they were studying, how children learn, all of this. They're also studying actually IQ and things like that. And Howard Gardner came along and he said, what if the IQ system is wrong? Because the IQ system is just, your linguistics, math, those basic things. And he was like, that's not a true sense of what someone's IQ is.
There's
What
more
we
to it, right?
Yeah, there's a whole broad range, and when we try to categorize it in this teeny tiny box, that it's basically saying you're smart, you're dumb, and that's not how it is. We all have so many different things about us, and if we were all the same, if we all fit in that high, what they call IQ range, then we would lose so much of the beauty of life. And anyways, I pulled up my book. I always forget a couple, so I want to make sure. So there's 8 in his theory of multiple intelligences. He believes, and from his studies, he did a lot of work actually doing testing, and it's pretty fascinating. I won't get into the details, but 8 areas of intelligence, and they're musical, linguistic, mathematics, visual, spatial awareness, naturalistic, so the nature, body and kinesthetic, interpersonal and intrapersonal. So interacting with other people, and then also internally you as an individual. and understanding yourself. And you think about all the roles different people play, you know, from our doctors to athletes to, you know, those in like nature and park rangers and all of that. And there's such a wide variety in what they do. But it's a beautiful part of our world. So anyways, as we look at education, I learned about him, and that it was one of those moments that you have where you're like, this is true and right. This is good. And as I educated in the classroom, I tried to implement things like that. It's a lot harder because in public school, even though you're educated and taught all of these things, as you know, in your elementary education, schooling, you know, you're taught all of these things, but yet you get in the classroom and you can't implement it because there's so many hoops to jump through and all the testing.
Yes, I found that for sure. I didn't really even want to do it by the time I was done with college, very much, because a lot of it was classroom management.
Exactly.
And
there's oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and not necessarily based on what we had learned about, or you know, about the whole child and things like that. You know, these philosophers had said, you know, this is about, you know, this is the child, and this is what we need to look at, and yet it wasn't set up that way in the system.
Yeah, exactly. So as I left the classroom and my first child was born, and just raising my kids, took me a little while. My husband took some converting, I say, to homeschooling. And once he was on board and we brought the kids home, it was wonderful. But talking about the whole child, it's hard because most of us were raised in the public school system. And it's just the way our world has been set up for so long. But if we go back and study, it's not, you know, there's other ways to educate. And we actually look at some of, you know, people from history, you know, Thomas Jefferson, Edison, all of these different people who they excelled outside of the classroom, when it was very individualized just to them. So anyways, coming home, bringing my kids home, my natural instinct reverted back to the public educator at first. And it just did not feel right. And, you know, I kind of tried to push through thinking, oh, the kids, we just got to have better routines and more discipline. And the kids need to listen to me and realize that mom's the teacher. But that wasn't the problem. That wasn't the problem at all. There was no love of learning there. It was very task oriented, check the boxes. And that's not what true education is. That's just surface level, checking the box type thing.
Sometimes it can really start to feel like that, can't it? You know, if we try to bring school home and do it the same way, rather than like looking at it from a whole new perspective.
And I think too, we think because educators are doing it this way, that, oh, it has to be this is the Holy Grail, this is the right way.
The experts, right?
But what we don't
college.
Exactly. But what we don't what we don't realize is the reason things are structured the way they are. Well, there's a lot of reasons the way they are, but the biggest reason is it's out of necessity. To be a teacher and to have 30 plus kids that are all so different, and you have this certain list of things and these certain tests, you lose your job, if you're not meeting these certain standards. What they're doing is out of necessity. So we shouldn't look at that framework of the public school situation because
as an ideal, right?
Yeah. Because what we're doing at home is not out of necessity. It's very individualized with our children, and that's the greatest beauty of homeschooling. So giving myself permission to step away from the public school mentality, and giving myself permission to really look individually at my kids and say, you know what, this one, we need to focus in this area right now. This is where they're interested. This is what drives them. And we can still be working on these things, but we're not going to drill and kill it out of them, any love of it. We'll let this come when it comes, because the language arts, those types of skills, comes early for some and later for others. And that's okay, because that individual has something else that comes early. And there's not you need to by 8 years old learn this and 12 years old, because the brain is so different and it's wired different and personalities are different. But it will come when it's supposed to come.
And they'll be able to do because in the public school system, it's kind of, and it's just out of necessity. It's not that somebody's trying to, or do anything,
Exactly.
It's terrible, but it's like, okay, we've got to learn this, and this at this age. And not that it's the same from school to school, sometimes, or school district to school district, or,
exactly.
and sometimes we think, well, we've got to be right on par with everybody who's 7 years old or everybody who's 12 years old, and they need to be learning these skills. And if I'm not doing that, I'm failing. But it's not like that at all. And there's a whole lot more whole child, and looking at the child, and, there's going to be holes in everyone's education. But I think that a lot more of those holes will be filled in than we really realize just by living in everyday life, and those things will come. So I think sometimes we get really worried about that. But,
yeah. One of my team members, her name's Jessica, we shared a little part of one of her kids' stories on social media probably a month ago. And it touched me when I read it so much. I just want to share it real quick, if that's okay. So Jessica, this is what she posted. She said, my oldest son struggled with nearly every academic subject. Whenever I prayed for help, the answer was always to love him. What about college? I asked. What about a job or career? Love him was always the answer. So I did what I could. I read to him. I took him on field trips. I worked with him. Mostly, I loved him. I changed my ways and made sure that he didn't feel like my love was dependent upon his academic success. Now, many years later, he is a missionary. He sends home long, delightful emails every week. The child who could not write has become a writer. The child who could not learn speaks Spanish. The child who couldn't read reads and studies daily. I get chills every time I read that, and I've read it a bunch of times, because there's such power and truth in that. I was reading another article one day, and what struck me is the biggest change in behavior is love. It's not strict rules and tight regiment things. It's not, I need to go and learn. I mean, parenting skills are obviously important. And but at the very core base of everything is love. And that's when we can really achieve a lot of things in our home. And that's also what directs us to know what each individual child needs.
Yes, the discipline isn't just correcting behavior. That's just the small part of it. But down here, you've got to have all of the relationship, don't you? And then you won't have to necessarily be correcting very much if you have that there, and that you have that relationship with your child. And sometimes we just get so focused on the, on checking off lists, like you were saying, and making sure that those things get done, which is not terrible, to make sure that, you're getting things accomplished that you've set goals to do. But but it's the focus on the child and loving the child as a person. And how wonderful is that for somebody to be able to have a person who is so invested in their life, just that one person. How amazing would that have been as we were growing up to have that one person who was so invested,
Absolutely.
who cared about us.
Yes. And going back to what you were talking about, your initial question about teaching the whole child. As we're talking about this, my middle child comes to mind, because her education, we've had to individualize very much for her, and it's been a huge blessing. When I brought my kids home, she had just gone through kindergarten in public school, and we struggled, and we, butt heads so much, and it took me a while to figure out what was going on. But she was my mover. She couldn't sit still in her chair, and just so active. And it was fun.
Down and
yes. And I was like, how can you read like that? It's not possible,
getting up, jumping up and down.
Yes.
And lots of us relate.
Yeah. I mean, as we watch kids more, you just realize, some are not meant to sit in a chair for long periods of time. They just, what I mean?
Therefore, you get an A if you can sit in your seat.
Exactly.
There's a lot that can't. That's not how they're wired.
No. So I started thinking back about, the whole child and all of these different ways. And when I started doing things a little bit different, so reading was the part that was the worst. She loved science. Math was fine, but reading, but a part of me was like, okay, do I just let it go and just let her figure out on her own? And I was like, no, we need to be consistent. And as time went on, noticed, some dyslexia, which actually now we've learned is a beautiful gift of the way her brain sees the world, but that's a whole nother subject. But I changed things. And so sight words, in our basement, we used to have a swing, and she would get on the swing and I would hold sight word. I would say the word, she'd swing backwards, then she'd swing forward and she would say the word. And
I love that.
She learned so many sight words that way. It surprised me, and it shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. We would play games. We put the words out on the floor, and then we have these giant dice. We'd roll the dice, and she'd have to jump to that, that many words along. And if she said the word right, she got to turn it upside down. If not, and she would just go around the words, and she just ate it up. And all of a sudden, like, schooling or learning wasn't a chore. It was fun for her, and it was happening. I just had to change my perspective of that. It doesn't need to be one little way. One of her talents is how physical and active she is and things like that. So
with this view in mind, you put together your website and the things that you offer. And so what is your favorite thing? I saw that you have, some really fun picture books and things like that on your website. And some just really wonderful resources, units and things like that. They look fantastic.
My favorite resource, that's really, really hard. I was telling someone the other day, my favorite was such and such. And then I was like, no, it's this. So with the Mindful Heart, we follow a heart-based education. And what we mean by that is we first connect with the child and at a heart level. And that's using things like stories, art, music, nature. And from there, then we're able to, bring in some of the academic things. But if there's not that connection there, and we specifically start as a family connection, so that we have the heart and soul part of the day, and we have the heart and mind part of the day. And the heart and soul part is entire family together, learning from these same things, stories from history, the art and the music and notebooking and read alouds and also hymns and folk songs and scripture and poetry. That kind of sounds
we've everything all in.
Yeah, we've organized it, so it's laid out. It's not everything, all of these things in one day. But anyways, one of the resources that we have that goes along with it with stories is our storybook. And this is one of them. This is our third storybook. And our units, so they're based around history is where our heart and soul time is. And then in heart and mind time, we have a language arts theme, a math theme, and what am I missing? A science theme. And so there's lots of activities, but there's stories, and I just love it. The artwork, the illustrators we use are just amazing. This is one of the stories that one of our writers wrote, and this is about classification of living things, which for your little ones, it would be like, and not fun and engaging, but she's written this story about the 5 kingdoms and just these beautiful pictures for children, just so they're learning and exposed, but in a fun, playful way that meets them developmentally where they are. So that's one of my favorites. Another one of my favorites is for the high school age kids, middle school and high school, and they're called investigations. And this first one we put out is for 15 to 17-year-olds. It's called A Light in the Dark. And it's a study of World War I and World War II, but it's not just studying that, but it's learning to see the light and goodness even in the hardest of times. And it's just a course book in a way, but it's more of a mentored, a way of mentoring the youth through, and they read living books. There's artwork in here that goes along with what they're learning. There's music for them to listen to. There's documentaries. And it makes me so excited that our Kathleen, she's one of the VPs that leads up this middle school and high school portion. And it's just amazing. It makes me so excited for my 15-year-old that is now starting to work on this, and just seeing the amazing connections being made when we look at something at history as not dry, but as connected with with all these other aspects of the child and their learning. So
yeah, so it's not just black and white in a textbook, and this happened when and on this date, but it's just the whole thing. There's so much about it and even the beautiful things about it.
Exactly. And in the light of God and what he has created, it specifically, what we do with Mindful Heart actually does align specifically with doctrine of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But if someone was not a member of our faith, this very much could be something that they use, and they would just remove there's talks or scriptures that they could just skip over if they didn't want to. But we feel like it's written in a way that could be enlightening for everyone, no matter your faith. So
that's wonderful. And I saw that you had some different free resources on your site and everything too. That looks
yeah.
good.
So as a new company, we're putting products out, but nobody knows about us yet. And everyone knows in the homeschool world, everyone talks online. What are you using, your favorites? And we just wanted to get this in the hands of people so they could try it and decide if they wanted to use it. And because it's a little bit intimidating spending money on something that you don't even know what it's like. So we actually, right now, until we run out of our initial stock, we put out free 1,000 parent guides and learning guides. And we have a couple hundred left, depending on which level of child. So it's our unit 1. I don't have unit 1 with me, but unit 3. So we have a parent guide that walks you through the activities, when to read the stories, how to do the heart and soul time. So our first unit's about Native Americans, and the parent guide and learning guides are free while supplies last till that initial 1,000 is gone. So
Oh, and those are, did you say, how much are they? You said they're
free.
they are free. Oh my
They're
goodness,
totally free.
free.
The parent
That's
guides
so
and the
amazing.
learning guides. Yeah. Yeah, we want people to try it and decide, is this what we want? And yeah. Anyways.
And so it's just like it's all spelled out right there. So that you don't even have to just worry about it. You know, what am I going to teach today? And just be, you know, like during the headlights, you can just pull it out and you can get, or do you plan like a week in advance, or how do you do it? Can you like open it and just
So part of heart-based education is the heart of your family. And so, like what we talked about in the very beginning, having a roadmap for your family is very individualized. And I feel like it's between you and your family and God. And so we're providing resources, and we do have some structure to it so that it can be completely open and go. And if you're a new homeschool mom and that's where you're comfortable with, you can do that. But what we provide, we want families to individualize. And I've actually, over the past few days, I've been talking to the different team members on our team and asking them, so what does your heart and soul time look like? What does your heart and mind time look like? And it's slightly different for everyone. One family's like, oh my goodness, my kids love the folk songs, so we sing them every day. And the other person was like, yeah, my kids really aren't getting the folk songs, but oh my goodness, they love the art. And you know what I mean?
yes. I can
So it can
definitely
be,
see that.
yeah, it can be very, very open and go, but it can also be very individualized. And we've done that on purpose so that it can be unique for your family.
So and also for the ages that you're homeschooling also, because I can see how it would be really helpful in where well, we've been homeschooling for about 18 years. And so just being able to say, oh, this would be a great song right now, and just, you know, going through and then we'll use this and we'll use this. And I love to do that way. And we have a little time that we call creative mom time. So even if they're still doing, you know, they're going to go do their college classes, or they're going to do their, you know, we get together and we get their, you know, their math and their cursive or whatever underway. We meet together, and this would be so much fun for, you know, for this time. So that's how I would probably use it in you know, with my children. But it sounds like it's just really flexible. You could use it in a lot of different ways.
And each unit comes with a picture pack, which you know, some people may just want the picture packs and the storybook if they have their own routine. But the picture packs, we've gone through and researched and found the most beautiful of artwork. It's high quality printed. Like we also have a monthly musician. And so there's a beautiful painting of each musician with a short story in the back of their life. And then we have links to the audio recordings of the music.
It's marvelous.
So yeah, anyways, I'm excited to share it with people.
So everyone go in and take a look at the website. It'll be in the link down below, and down below this video. And just like some really amazing resources from a team of homeschoolers that have been there and that are there and that are helping to make these wonderful resources for everyone else who's deep in the trenches and who care about the children and care about the future of our world. So I just thank you so much for being here today, Mindi. I really appreciate all these things that you've been doing and all the good that you're doing in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful.
Yes, I am too. Thank you so much for joining me today. And everyone go check out everything that that Mindi and her team are offering.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
You too.